Welcome back to the studio. If you're new, I'm SLEW. Can I paint like the masters? Not even close. I think that's pretty obvious. Not even a little bit close. Far from being even close. But it's really fun and important to learn from the work that masters have made, like Da Vinci, or Caravaggio, or Botticelli, or Rembrandt, or Verrocchio. I am no historian. I am, far from a historian also. There's also contemporary, masters in illustration, like Robert Howe, or Andrew Loomis, It's very common in the sort of academic world of naturalistic painting and drawing to look back and mimic work and, strokes of old masters to improve and inform your own art practice. I've done quite a few, not very many, but I've done a few master copies, master paintings, also quick sketches at the Metropolitan Museum of Art to just do quick studies and really hyper-analyze works of masters and mimic them to practice. And there's also a lot of awesome artists on YouTube and Instagram, digital teachers, online masterful painters like Stephen Bauman, as well as Ken Goshen. Those guys are really accomplished craftsmen, artists, and they have amazing courses sort of diving really deep into those. All my videos of past master copies, also those guys I just talked about, it will all be linked, so you could just check those out. But today, we're just gonna have a really mellow video doing a master copy of one of my favorite sort of looser masterful painters, John Singer Sargent. It's a lot of people's favorite. He is quite an amazing artist, and the style of his paintings is something I strive for, even if it's just 1%. So we're gonna be doing a master copy of this painting. I just had to re-look up the name, but this is called A Young Girl in a White Muslin Blouse, I believe. John Singer Sargent, really amazing. Super mellow painting session, and I know this nice string quartet music can sound a little dramatic, so I don't want to be dramatic. I just really like it. It's kind of a vibe, when we're talking about old masters. I had all that awesome footage from when I went to the Met. That was back in 2020 at the beginning of COVID. I had basically the Met to myself. I brought my little cinema camera. Anyways, I'm not that big of an expert on John Singer Sargent at all. I don't know much about him even. All I know is that I absolutely love his paintings. They're just incredible. And I said before that I enjoy the looseness of him in his paintings. And I don't think that's necessarily true per se. And you could say a bunch of different words and adjectives to, give context to the attributes of his paintings. But, he's known for portraits, that's for sure. Just amazing. The way he's able to say so much with, maybe less work than you think within paint, his heavy kind of hand with strokes, and it's just such to me, and what I want to achieve in the style of painting I like, it's very painterly and loose. I'm pretty out of practice in terms of I don't paint enough, and I use these sketchbooks that I love, and when I'm kind of approaching these sketchbooks, I kind of cap it out at 2 hours. So these are never really super intense studies, 2 hours. Sometimes I'll go 3, and sometimes it'll just be an hour. But that's, I think, a great time to get some hours in, practice, and have enough time to flesh some things out. And you'll see how this turns out at the end. This video is brought to you by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for anyone who loves learning, obviously, and wants to explore their creativity and learn new skills. If you have a specific skill you're trying to learn, the odds are, and I could guarantee that Skillshare is the perfect place to start. From photography all the way to illustration, to graphic design, freelancing, everything in between. You could really find classes that match your exact goals and interests. I used Skillshare a lot when I was learning how to edit in the beginning of my YouTube channel, and there's this new class with Jordy Vandeput. if I pronounced that right. I hope. It's called Editing with Premiere Pro. I think it's super important for, artists of this digital age in 2022 to know how to edit video. And this is a great class covering all the basics of Premiere Pro, which is the application I use to edit my videos. Skillshare really does just have the best user interface, and each class is filled with amazing assignments and discussion boards. New premium classes are launched each week, so there is always something new to discover, which is pretty epic. The first 1,000 people to use the link on my description box or my code SLEW will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. It's a great deal. Thanks, Skillshare, for sponsoring the video. And half the time I'm doing these studies, as much as I've done portraits and, I'm more familiar with the order of operations and how to achieve likeness, I still sometimes feel so lost in the middle or even at the beginning. It's really, I feel very inconsistent in that way. And I've said this a lot, that I think, if you give me enough time, I can fumble around and repaint over things to eventually find the likeness or the proportions or the tilt of the head. But it seems to me that it takes 2 or 3 tries to kind of get there. And I was kind of struggling with this girl's pose. I love 3/4 portraits, but, there's something about her head and the cranial mass sort of, and the way she was tilted a little, and it was, when I get hung up on that, it kind of just plagues me, and it's hard to just move on. And maybe you can't tell, and I haven't gotten that far yet, but I just remember that. But the most important thing, especially with, we're talking about 2 hours here to paint, you just really want to focus on the general light and dark, the eyes, nose and mouth placement, and that's pretty much it. Like, you could really suggest the hair with minimal strokes like I do. Like, I basically don't even touch the hair, and there's just a lot of things to skip. And the point and the agenda with this session of study and to practice is to stay loose and to find the sort of artifacts that Sargent used to achieve this painting, without seeing him paint it, obviously, just by looking at the reference, his final painting. The strokes of paint, the patches of color, the little tiles of value and where they are, why are they prominent. So it's this weird visual dissection and being like visually analytical. And so I was really focusing on like the highlights. Obviously I want to get the proportions and it to look like her, and it doesn't really look like her at the end. You'll see it's not the best likeness at all, but this little highlight above her right lip, and also her nose and on her cheekbone next to her eye. Like, those are the shapes that I think are beautiful and that I really wanted to try to capture. Again, I don't have a lot of time with this, so it's very loose, not very rendered strokes, but that's what made me love the painting, is those sort of artifacts within the portrait. And you could dissect the whole portrait and find, every stroke and try to get similar. But again, with 2 hours, just looking for those sort of things is what I was doing. And also, I just love a green background. There's just something about a green background that I just really like, and I think it pairs so well with skin tones, and it takes me so long to kind of get to these points. I don't know how else to say. I'm kind of lost for words. It's so awesome to look back at these portraits to see my process, especially when I slow it down this much. Like, the time lapse isn't super sped up, and I kind of regret not filming the palette, because I also like to see how I mix paint. It's actually very cathartic, but also interesting, and helps me to see my own process sped up like this. You can only kind of see the true order of operations in this shortened time frame, and why I chose to do that first, and if I could have done this dark part and put in these values before that. But seeing the palette also helps with that. So this is just internal conscious jargon that I'm thinking about right now. But I think I should do some more drawing. I think that would really help my painting, and that's what I'm just thinking right off the bat. Because if you were looking at the reference, like, it doesn't really look exactly like her. I was kind of thinking to myself that this portrait looks like an eviler, like distraught child, like some young girl in a horror movie. Like she kind of looks like a bad omen. I don't know, but I think that's a lot with the drawing, and the foundation of paintings is in drawing, especially with portraits. And that's something I think I should continue, and that, you know, I could pair drawing practice with doing master copies and mimicking. And they're just so fun, and especially if you're just a fan of epic work, and it doesn't have to be some old dead white guy, you know, it could be anything, any cool painting or drawing you see. I think it's like very important for people who are trying to learn to mimic them, as long as you're not claiming it as original artwork. Obviously, you got to give credit where credit is due. But I think mimicking and trying styles of different artists are so awesome. You know, in my other kind of realm of painting, my more graphic and illustrative style, I think James Jean is my by far favorite artist. And if I think before I've really tried to hone in on getting some James Jean visuals in my work, and just the way he makes characters and works with color, it's amazing. This part, I remember, you know, this is me probably just being lazy or tired, and these little hair strands are just terrible. It's just lazy. It's just, I don't know what I was thinking, trying to just finesse it. But that's pretty much it. Really quick 2-hour portrait. I really like it. I don't think the likeness is great, but again, kind of looking for those artifacts. It was just a really good exercise, and it's in the little sketchbook forever. And hopefully I could do more of these. That's the name of the game. On to the next one. How many of these practice sessions can you do? See you in the next video.